Coming up on 5 Minute News. Pandemic haunts New Year as virus growth outpaces vaccines. No charges against Wisconsin officer who shot Jacob Blake. And Georgia decides US Senate control and fate of Biden's agenda. It's Wednesday, January 6. I'm Anthony Davis. Despite growing vaccine access, January is looking grim around the globe as the coronavirus resurges and reshapes itself from Britain to Japan to California, filling hospitals and threatening livelihoods anew as governments lock down businesses and race to find solutions. And as doctors face or brace for rising numbers of COVID-19 patients after end-of-year holiday gatherings, more and more countries are reporting cases of a new, more contagious variant that has already swept across Britain. While England rolled out a second vaccine this week and some US states are starting to give the second round of shots, access to inoculations globally is sharply unequal. The supply isn't remotely close to meeting the epic demand needed to vanquish a foe that has already killed over 1.85 million people. We're in a race to prevent infections, bring cases down, protect health systems and save lives, while rolling out two highly effective and safe vaccines to high-risk populations, said WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus. This is not easy. These are the hard miles. Elsewhere in Europe, Italy and Germany extended their Christmas-time lockdowns. Spain is restricting travel and Denmark lowered the number of people who can gather in public from 10 to 5. France is likely to announce tougher measures tomorrow, and Ukraine is closing schools and restaurants starting on Friday. In Latin America, some warn the worst is yet to come. Brazil's number of patients in intensive care reached its highest level since August, just as the nation reopened shops and offices after the end-of-year holidays, and the vast country still hasn't approved or received any vaccines. Some Brazilian hospitals reinstalled refrigerated containers outside to hold the corpses of COVID-19 victims. The pandemic is even reaching countries that seem to have the virus under control. Japan is getting ready to declare a state of emergency this week, beefing up border controls and speeding up vaccine approval after a surge of cases around New Year's Eve. The world's only city celebrating the eradication of the virus is Wuhan, China, where SARS-CoV-2 originated in late 2019. A Wisconsin prosecutor announced on Tuesday that he will not file criminal charges against a white police officer who shot a black man in the back in Kenosha last summer, leaving him paralyzed and setting off sometimes violent protests in the city. Officer Ruston Sheskey's shooting of Jacob Blake on August 23rd, captured on bystander video, turned the nation's spotlight on Wisconsin during a summer marked by protests over police brutality and racism. More than 250 people were arrested in the days that followed, including 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who is charged in the fatal shootings of two men and the wounding of a third. Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely said on Tuesday that he wouldn't charge either Sheskey or two other officers at the scene, saying he would have to disprove the clear expression of these officers that they had to fire a weapon to defend themselves. He added, "I do not believe the state would be able to prove that the privilege of self-defense is not available." Ben Crump, an attorney for Blake's family, expressed disappointment with the decision, saying it further destroys trust in our justice system and sends a message that it's okay for police to abuse their power. He said he will continue to move forward with a lawsuit and fight for systemic change in policing. The Blake shooting happened 3 months after George Floyd died while being restrained by police officers in Minneapolis, a death that was captured on bystander video and sparked outrage and protests that spread across the United States and beyond. The galvanized Black Lives Matter movement put a spotlight on inequitable policing and became a fault line in politics, with Donald Trump criticizing protesters and aggressively pressing a law and order message that he sought to capitalize on in Wisconsin and other swing states. Not charging the officer continues the cycle of enabling police violence and evading accountability when they seriously injure and harm a black person, said Chris Ott, executive director of the ACLU of Wisconsin. Based on the video footage of the incident, it remains hard to see any reason to shoot Mr. Blake in the back repeatedly, but as we've seen so many times before, the police in this case were held to a different standard of responsibility than the rest of us. Georgians cast their ballots yesterday in two critical races that will determine control of the US Senate and in turn the fate of President-elect Joe Biden's legislative agenda. The voting will also affect Donald Trump's final days in the White House. The two Senate runoff elections are leftovers from the November general election, when none of the candidates hit the 50% threshold. Democrats need to win both races to seize the Senate majority and, with it, control of the new Congress when Biden takes office in 2 weeks. In one contest, Republican Kelly Loeffler, a 50-year-old former businesswoman who was appointed to the Senate less than a year ago by the state's governor, faced Democrat Raphael Warnock, who serves as the senior pastor of the Atlanta church where Martin Luther King Jr. grew up and preached. The other election pitted 71-year-old former business executive David Perdue, a Republican who held his Senate seat until his term expired on Sunday, against Democrat Jon Ossoff, a former congressional aide and journalist. At just 33 years old, Ossoff would be the Senate's youngest member. The unusual importance for the runoffs has transformed Georgia, once a solidly Republican state, into one of the nation's premier battlegrounds during the final days of Trump's presidency. Biden and Trump campaigned for their candidates in person on the eve of the election, though some Republicans feared Trump may have confused voters by continuing to make wild claims of voter fraud as he tries to undermine Biden's victory. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.